All right, guys, here's a trade report for Monday, June 1st, 2015. Let's take a look at our current positions first. JNUG still holding on over that gap fill area and the 50-day moving average, actually a little under the gap fill, but the 50-day moving average. Again, our entries were 1990, 21, and 25, so it's been a tiered kind of entry, and again, longer term position, and we're going for a move somewhere between 30 and 50, and we'll reassess each time we get one of those to one of those levels. The key now is to get back up to 25 where that gap fill was over here. Amazon still looking good. Earnings breakout, rounded pullback setup, and we got the rounded pullback here, 423, and since then we've basically been basing over that level and got up to 440. Target is 445 to 450. And stop is around 413, so looking good there. A newer entry, I think it was Thursday, QIWI. Earnings breakout pullback to the gap fill, pretty much holding that level right now. We're looking for the move up. Dig, we're at 52. The stop is going to be under this pivot low here, 5140, and we've talked about 5180 earlier, and I went a little lower than that again because I have a lower position size, but we'll see how that plays out this week. Got stopped out of Tizu. Other position, we had an entry on Friday, which was Yelp, and Yelp had not been on the focus list, although it is on my watch list pretty much all the time. But we'd had this earnings breakdown here, and it consolidated since the earnings breakdown, actually got to the gap fill and broke down again, and now this huge move up. And I honestly don't remember if that was earnings. I would imagine that would be another earnings here. But now after this huge move up, what we see is a change of character, and that's what we're looking for. This has been in a downtrend, and now we got the real change in character, where every one of these consolidations is a negative pattern. Now this consolidation has a positive pattern, and that's how we predict when these trends are going to turn around, basically based on volume and an explosive move. And that's what we've got here. Consolidated down under the 50-day moving average and has now remounted. And when the remount held, I decided to take a shot on Friday. And we'll see if we can even just get up here to 50.51. That's a pretty nice gain for us. Stop will be somewhere in here around 45, 46. So that's our current positions. Let's take a look at SPY. Now, choppy range, back in the range, under the old high, and we'll see this week how that plays out. Do we hold the 50-day? That's key. And there's also, believe it or not, a small little gap fill here. We came within just a few cents of closing it, but that is available there at 212.99, and we're at 211.14 now. And then obviously the new high here. So we've got some key levels in there to watch, but overall right now, until we get anything different telling us otherwise, it's just chop. So we're just looking at specific setups and making no big plays on the market. Now, let's quickly look at some of the sectors here, ETFs. Still high on semiconductors, and when I get into our focus list, wait a minute, there we go. And you can see semiconductors are showing relative strength, not below highs, they're actually above highs. And I've added some semiconductors to our focus list, which I'll go over in a second. Other than that, there's no real sector that strikes out at me except oil. Oil is picking up again and bouncing off the 50-day. Oil and biotech. Biotech also, I've made a list of some new biotech stocks that we have not been watching in the past. So we'll take a look at that. A few other sectors that are really coming into play now. Gaming, which we've talked about, and I added one gaming, but really in our focus list already, we have 6 gaming stocks. So gaming, software applications, and we've added a few of those here. But again, under software, a number of them that we're already watching also, like TWOU, obviously CyberFay and those cybersecurity stocks. But those are some sectors we're really keying in on right now. And of course, we're looking more into biotech. as biotech never seems to want to fail, even when it looks like it's about to. So we'll go over that in a second. Now let's go over the semiconductor stocks, and some of these aren't necessarily stocks that are in play for tomorrow, but during the week we'll watch them. One is VIMC. You can see here, had this nice ramp up, has basically consolidated into this kind of flag pattern, and now has broke out to highs here. So we'll see if there's a consolidation here, and we can get an entry in VIMC. AAOI, we've actually watched this stock, and it was consider a possible parabolic short, but now maybe it just consolidates here, and we can actually get in at the bottom of a consolidation. So we'll be watching that closely. AMCC. Now this, if we take it back farther, is bottoming play. So it's interesting that each one of these is a different pattern. So we had this trend down, and usually, you know, the 50-day moving average gives us a trend line. We don't even need to draw one. Remounted the 50-day, and now have remounted the 20-day. And again, look at the change in volume, character of the volume pattern. A pretty healthy volume pattern here now on this move up, and we've remounted here. So a little bit of a pullback, and I'll look to enter AMCC and then SIGM. Now this, unlike the other one, a bottoming play, this is just a straight trend pullback to the 50-day moving average. A little bit of weakness here would set up a good entry. So those are the 4 semiconductor stocks we're watching right now. I went through, you know, about 150 of them, and you know, I could have picked 10 or 15, but didn't see a need for that. So these are 4 or 5 different semiconductors, and each one of them has a little bit of a different pattern to give us some variety there. Now let's look at biotech, and we've got our usual suspects that we watch, like AGIO, Blue, and a few others. But here are some new ones. PRTA. Actually went over this with a student, and he had pointed this out, and I loved it. Breakout, pulled back here, and now has remounted the 50-day moving average. Fantastic volume pattern. Hopefully we get a little bit of a pullback and it doesn't just ramp up, but I really like PRTA. Court, this one had ramped up, now it's consolidated and has based right at the 50-day moving average. So a little bit of weakness there. A good volume pattern could set up an entry. SCERS was already on our watch list from last week, and this one had remounted the moving averages with some good volume pattern. Inverted hammer here, so I'd like to see a pullback there. SRPT, this is a classic breakout here, off a bottoming play. You know, it broke a trend, and we like when we break a trend. And now we'll see how it consolidates, and if we get a good entry, we can watch either. Let's see if this range develops here, and we can enter here, or we could enter a breakout of 27, say, or a pullback to the bottom of the range. So there's a number of ways to play SRPT. VNDA, this is, again, kind of a bottoming. This is more of a range-based one. And actually, the overall pattern is kind of choppy, but we're at the bottom of it, which is a positive. Good volume pattern. And the reason I liked it the best was it's got a high short interest, so there's the possibility of a short squeeze. So VNDA, and then OPK. And here, this is just new highs consolidating, and we're going to have to see how that plays out before we look to enter. So those are some new stocks in biotech and semiconductors I talked about last week, building up a list of those, and that's what we're going to be watching, along with the ones that we've already been watching, of course. And let me hit gaming real quick, because that is one of the hottest sectors. Every one of these are on our focus list already. So going into the week, these are part of the focus list. Glue, I know a lot of you are already in this. The earnings breakout, bottom of the range. EA, not really an entry. We need a little pullback there, but we've been watching that one forever. TTWO, breakout, pullback. A little bit of weakness here sets up a really good entry for take two. CM, consolidating now after this strong move up. So we might get an entry at the bottom of that range, Cheetah Mobile, and then DSKY. We talked about this one last week. Also, this one totally different pattern. Again, a bottoming formation remount here. So a little bit of a pullback would set up a good entry. And the 50-day, this is an IPO with the 50-day right around 14 would give us a nice 30% gain there if we could hit that. So some good gaming stocks there. Now, let's get to the rest of the focus list. So all three of these sectors, biotech, semiconductors, gaming, make up part of our focus list. And now the rest of the focus list here, breakout from Friday, HRTX, drug manufacturer, so in line with biotech here. Nice breakout. Let's see if it pulls back a little. And I like this one a lot, to where if it doesn't even need to get to the bottom of the breakout bar. If we got a little profit taking in the morning around 1840, 1850, I might go ahead and enter there. Yoku, talked about Yoku, made this big move up in internet content and China, or Japan, I guess. But now it's consolidating. We'll look for consolidation entry in Yoku, WBAI. Again, basing, we were talking about maybe doing a pre-entry. Not now. I think we'd want a deeper pullback, so we would have to wait. Said G, we need a pullback here, but I like the overall pattern. And again, remember, at the start of the week, we look for stocks that could be in play at any time during the week. So it might not be an entry tomorrow, but this is our list going into the week. That's why it's always a little bigger than our normal list of 6 to 10 stocks. This one is going to end up being about 20 to 30 stocks to start the week. MNKD, this is actually a biotech stock also, but it was already on our list. And again, it had bottomed out here, and now a lot of volume coming in, remounted the 50-day. Let's see if we remount the 200-day, but a pullback here would be a decent entry for MNKD. OAS, oil and gas, basing, nice volume pattern over the 50-day. This is actually an entry at any point you want to enter with a stop down here. Give yourself a little bit of a loose stop in case there's some monkey business around the 50-day moving average. Kemp, another biotech. You can see what we're really keying in on right now, but had violated the 50-day moving average. Now back remounted here and right at a good entry point for Kemp. CSLT, software application, and another sector we're watching very closely. Bottoming formation. You can see we're either getting bottoming formations or trend plays or breakouts. Those are the three real setups we're keying in on right now. Bottoming play here, remounted, good volume pattern. The key on these bottoming plays is not the price pattern, it's the volume underlying it. So that's what you really want to watch. So a little bit of a pullback would set up a good entry there. Our usual cyber here. Not the greatest pattern right now, but it is at the 50-day moving average. Decent volume pattern, and cyber is always on our list. Fay here now is right at highs. Interesting here. Do you enter here at the high? But it looks like it might consolidate here. And let's see if we get a pullback there. And finally, the one I've been so close to entering so many times on this pre-breakout kind of trade. So we're watching either a breakout or a breakout pullback. Maybe the volume pattern is so good here, and it's consolidated for a while, and the 50-day moving average is pretty close here. So that's why I've been thinking, you know what, maybe I'll enter here pre-breakout. If we can enter here, say at 46.50, and it breaks out, and then we play the breakout to say this high at 52, we've got a pretty nice gain there. So we'll be watching that one closely. So that is it for the trade report. It looks like we should have an interesting week, and I will see you tomorrow with either a trade alert or the intraday report in the morning or around noon, and then the trade report post-market. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you then.